Amara stepped onto the terrace as dawn's pale light crept over the jagged cliffside. The castle, her castle, loomed behind her, its gray stones warmed by the rising sun. Every anniversary, Sebastian Wolf had surprised her. Silk-lined journals, first edition novels, ruby earrings, but never a castle. Now she stood before the soaring turrets and arched windows, heart pounding with awe and unease. She traced the carved battlements with her eyes as gulls wheeled in the misty air. A solitary raven croaked from a distant parapet. Below, waves crashed against the rocks, sending fine spray high into the wind. She inhaled the salt-tinged breeze and felt the thrill of ownership and a curious chill. The steel key in her hand felt heavy. She pressed it into the ornate lock set in the stone wall. The iron door groaned open. Inside, torch sconces flickered along a high corridor. Tapestries depicting ancestral wolves lined the walls. The rugs muffled her footsteps as she ventured deeper. Portraits of wolf forebears watched her with stern, painted eyes. Tall windows revealed glimpses of the sea and of her own reflection, framed by the ancient stones. At the far end, she found what Sebastian had called her first anniversary surprise. A small wooden chest sat upon a marble pedestal. Her name, Amara Lee, was inlaid in mother-of-pearl across the lid. With trembling fingers, she lifted the latch. Inside lay a single parchment, sealed with crimson wax stamped SW. She broke the seal. The letter, penned in Sebastian's precise hand, read, "My dearest Amara, 5 years ago, I built these walls with my own hands, metaphorically, until today. But some stones hold secrets buried too deep to surface without courage. Read honestly. I wait for your reaction over supper in the Great Hall. Yours forever, Sebastian." Her pulse raced. A secret? The corridors felt suddenly colder. She glanced back toward the entrance, empty. No guards, no servants. The castle seemed abandoned. Only the hiss of torches responded to her quick intake of breath. She folded the letter and slipped it into her coat pocket. Each step toward the great hall echoed like a drumbeat of anticipation. Would Sebastian reveal a confession, a marriage contract amendment, or some ancient family curse he had kept until the perfect moment? As she climbed the grand staircase, a distant clatter sounded, like metal on stone. She froze. Heart thundering, she listened. Silence. Then the echo of raised voices, faint and indiscernible. Her instincts, honed by years of navigating high-stakes boardrooms, whispered caution. At the top landing, she paused before an oak door carved with a roaring wolf. Through its narrow stained glass window, she saw elongated shadows playing across the polished floor. She pressed her palm to the cool wood, then swung it open. Inside, the great hall stretched wide under vaulted ceilings. A long table ran its length, set for two. Candles and wrought iron candelabras cast dancing light across silver goblets and polished plates. At the far end stood Sebastian, tall, impeccably dressed in midnight blue velvet. He turned, and his smile was warm but tinged with something unreadable. Amara swallowed, steeling herself. The castle's stones held secrets now revealed, both of love and mystery. She crossed the hall and met his gaze, resolved to face whatever truth awaited her. Amara adjusted her emerald green gown in the mirrored vestibule of Wolf Industries' annual gala. The grand ballroom shimmered with gilt and crystal chandeliers, guests in tuxedos and ball gowns mingling beneath murals of golden fields. As co-host alongside Sebastian, she smiled and nodded at dignitaries, investors, and society's elite. He strode in beside her, magnetic and composed. His hand at her small of back guided her through clusters of admirers. He exchanged firm handshakes, his smile practiced yet genuine. Amara felt pride at his side, and the familiar warmth that had drawn her to him. But then she saw her, Celine Moreau, draped in black silk. The woman stood near a marble fountain, wineglass poised as if suspended in time. Her posture was regal, her cheekbones sharp and high, her gaze fixed on Sebastian. When he turned toward Amara, Celine's lips curved into a slow, knowing smile. Sebastian paused, offering Amara's hand to a passing dignitary. He tipped his head slightly toward Celine, a subtle, private gesture. Amara's pulse quickened. Who was this woman who knew him so well? And why did Sebastian's eyes linger on her? She excused herself and drifted toward the fountain. Celine watched her approach, unblinking. Candlelight caught the facets of a diamond pendant at Celine's throat, the same rare cut Amara had seen on an orchid illustration in her private greenhouse. Amara. Celine's voice was soft, cultivated. Sebastian told me you'd be here. Amara tilted her chin. He did. Celine inclined her head, her gaze never leaving Amara's face. He spoke highly of you, but he forgot to mention how breathtaking you look tonight. Flattery, Amara thought, or provocation. She touched the neckline of her gown. Thank you. Celine lifted her glass. May I? She stepped closer, her perfume a heady swirl of jasmine and smoke. Amara inhaled, heart hammering. Celine's eyes were astonishingly pale, almost silvery. They spoke of superficial pleasantries, the gala success, the latest acquisition news. Yet each word felt loaded. When a server offered Celine champagne, she sipped, then set the flute aside. A hush fell over the crowd as Sebastian ascended the dais. He cleared his throat and began the evening speeches. Amara watched him from across the fountain, then glanced back at Celine. The woman was no mere guest. She belonged in his world, and perhaps held a key to the secret letter from the castle. As Sebastian spoke of legacy and vision, Amara realized the castle's mysteries were bleeding into her life here. A consultant, a rival, a sister. Questions spun in her mind like dancers under the chandelier's glittering light. When the speech ended, applause thundered. Sebastian descended the steps and intercepted Amara at her elbow. Thank you for tonight. His voice was low, intimate. He looked past her, eyes shadowed. May I introduce Celine Moreau? Celine stepped forward, extending a slender hand. Amara, I've heard so much. Her smile was luminous and loaded with promise and threat. Amara took her hand, her grip firm. Welcome. Beneath the gala's glamour, alliances were forming, and fractures beginning to show. Late that night, the castle's corridors were silent. Amara found herself sleepless in her chamber, wind rattling the window panes. She reviewed the strange letter's words, Celine's poised menace at the gala, and Sebastian's furtive glance. Something clicked in her mind, a fragment of French she had overheard near the fountain. Je suis désolé, and pense à nos souvenirs. Why would he speak French to a consultant he claimed not to know in that language? She slipped on a cashmere wrap and crossed the hall. The library's oak door creaked open under her gentle push. Lanterns lined shelves of leather-bound tomes. An antique globe sat in a corner, stars and seas painted across its surface. She inhaled the scent of old paper and wax. Fingers brushed spines as she approached Sebastian's favorite reading nook. A soft murmur drifted from behind an ornate screen. She edged closer, peering through carved latticework. There, Sebastian knelt beside Celine. His voice was low, animated. Je veux que tu sois sûr, he whispered. Celine placed a gloved hand on his arm. Amara's pulse thundered. She caught a flicker of candlelight on Celine's pendant, the same orchid motif. Celine's voice smooth and melodic. Tu sais que j'ai fait ci pour nous. Sebastian's breath caught. Mais Amara. They paused, sensing intrusion. Amara held still. Her heart threatened to betray her. She strained to hear more, but the words ended. Sebastian rose. Celine folded her hands. You should rest, dear sister. Her heart stuttered. Sister. Celine was his sister? But then Sebastian laughed softly, a warmth she had never heard when with her. He embraced Celine for a brief moment, too brief. Celine's eyes glinted with something like triumph. Amara stepped back, shattered by the revelation. She crept away as they turned toward the fireplace, mouths moving but words unintelligible. The hush swallowed her footsteps. In her bedchamber, she stared at the ceiling. Sister. French. A conspiracy woven in whispered syllables. The castle stones had already delivered one secret. Now another twisted deeper. She clenched her fists. Tomorrow, she would demand answers. For tonight, she would dream of betrayal and embroidered lies. Morning light filtered through stained-glass windows as Amara made her way to the greenhouse, a glass pavilion at the castle's heart. She had long treasured its rare orchids, but the west wing's door remained locked since Sebastian's eccentric decree. The corridor leading there was lined with locked iron gates, until she found one ajar. Inside, the greenhouse was humid and alive. Vines wound around stone columns. Exotic blooms glowed like lanterns. The air carried a heady perfume of jasmine and lilies. Sunlight streamed through panes, illuminating raindrops on leaves. At its center, a tall iron shelf held rows of orchids, each labeled in Sebastian's neat script: Phalaenopsis, Cattleya, Lupin's flower. The last, a curious hybrid, was rumored to grant soothing dreams. Amara recalled the portrait of an orchid in the sealed letter's envelope. She stepped forward and froze. One pod lay overturned, soil scattered. A single flower stem lay severed, the orchid's petals crushed underfoot. Anger flared. She knelt, touching the battered blossom. A soft footstep drew her gaze upward. There, leaning against the glass wall, was Celine, hands clasped behind her back. Sunlight gleamed on her dark hair. Her expression was inscrutable. "This is a private sanctuary," Amara said, voice steady despite her rage. Celine tilted her head. "A sanctuary that grows secrets." She pointed at the crushed orchid. "Lupin's flower. Memory suppressant, was it not? You keep it for yourself." Amara rose, brushing soil from her gown. "These plants were nurtured over years. You have no right." Celine stepped closer, lips inches away. "I have every right, Amara. You are entering someone else's domain. Someone who trusts me more than you." Heat rose to Amara's cheeks. "You know nothing about trust." Celine's eyes flicked to the locked door behind them. "I know more than you can imagine." She paused, her smile shadowed. "Remember the portrait in the letter?" Amara's heart lurched. "What are you talking about?" Celine withdrew a folded photograph. "This woman. She tended these orchids decades ago. She was our mother." Amara snatched the photo. It showed a striking woman, her features mirroring Celine's, same high cheekbones, same grave eyes. The date scrawled in the corner read 1992. Celine's voice was gentle now. "I warned you, not everything planted here grows from love." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Amara clutching the photograph amid the shattered blooms. That evening, Amara sat alone in the private chapel, an intimate stone room with stained glass windows depicting wolves in flight. She knelt in a pew, hands folded, mind racing. The day's revelations hung like thunderclouds. Sister, mother, memory flowers, secrets whispered in French. A furtive rustle echoed behind her. She turned to see the castle's head gardener, a lean man in earth-stained overalls. His face was lined, eyes wary. He stepped forward hesitantly. "Madam Lee," he said quietly, bowing his head. "Forgive my intrusion." Amara rose, smoothing her skirt. "You have nothing to forgive." "What is it?" He glanced at the altar, then back to her. "I know you found odd things today. I only wish to help." She crossed her arms. "Help how?" He swallowed. "That orchid in the greenhouse, Lupin's flower, it's not what you think. It was bred to bury memories. Our mother used it on her own daughter." He glanced over his shoulder, as if afraid the walls had ears. "I am that gardener's son. I planted it for her." Amara's heart hammered. "Your mother?" He nodded. "The woman in the photo." His voice trembled. "I don't know her full story, but Margot warned me she experimented on you." "Margot," Amara echoed, mind reeling. "Her estranged sister?" "The one you haven't seen in years," he said. "She told me secrets she couldn't bear. I planted that orchid to protect you, and to trap her." He lowered his gaze. "Beware, the castle's walls may offer safety, but its roots run deeper than you know." Amara stared at him, struggling to piece truths from lies. He placed a slender hand on her shoulder. "Find Margot. She's the only one who can explain." With that, he slipped away, leaving her amid the hushed echoes of candlelight. Alone, she sank to the floor, clutching her head. A stranger's warning, a sister's name, a new thread in the tapestry of betrayal. She realized then, to uncover the full truth, she must unearth every hidden memory, confront every broken promise, and dare to challenge the man she thought she knew. Tomorrow, she would seek Margot. Tonight, she would steel herself for the journey ahead. Night had settled over the castle, and Amara felt the weight of every secret pressing on her chest. She could not sleep, not after the gardener's warning, Celine's cryptic confidence, and the crushed orchid in the greenhouse. Wrapping herself in a velvet cloak, she crept down torchlit corridors, guided by instinct rather than logic. The guest wing lay silent. Tall mirrors with carved wolf heads lined the walls, their antiquated glass catching every flicker of flame. One mirror, larger and more ornate, stood slightly ajar. She inhaled sharply and pressed a hand to the cold wood of its frame. A faint click followed. The mirror swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a narrow alcove coated in dust. Inside lay a single portrait in an ebony frame. It showed a woman of striking resemblance to Celine. High cheekbones, sleek dark hair, and pale, unreadable eyes. A brass plaque beneath read, Celine Morrow Wolfe, born in 1964. Amara's breath caught. The date placed Celine at 61, yet Celine's beauty and bearing betrayed no hint of age. A sudden rustle made Amara spin. Julian Ray stood at the corridor's edge, shock and fear etched on his features. Amara, he hissed. What are you doing here? She stepped forward, holding up the portrait. Explain this. He swallowed. This isn't how you should learn. Why hide her? Amara pressed. Why lock away her image? Julian's eyes darted back to the mirror. She was banished. The bored my family. They feared her influence. Banished. Amara echoed. She's your sister, right? You called her family. I misspoke, he said too quickly. She's complicated. Amara's pulse thundered. Complicated how? I saw them whispering French together, and you lied about that too. He flinched. We spoke in French because, he glanced at the portrait, voice softening. She was once the heir, before revelations of fraud surfaced. Fraud, Amara whispered. Julia nodded. Celine discovered irregularities in the company's founding deals. She threatened to expose them, and our patriarch silenced her, legally erasing her. Her heart clenched. Then you buried her here, behind a mirror? To protect the legacy, and you, he said. She would have destroyed everything, including you, if you uncovered the full truth. She stared at him. You protect me by hiding lies? By forging our entire life together? Julian looked away. I'm sorry. I thought I was doing right. A distant bell tolled midnight. Julian stiffened. You should go back. Amara replaced the portrait gently. No more secrets, she whispered. I will find her. I will discover every lie. He bowed his head. At dawn, I will tell you what I know. As Julian retreated, Amara pressed her hand to the cold wall. The carved wolves seemed to watch her. Lies formed this castle's foundation. She would pull them down stone by stone. Sunlight poured through stained glass windows when Amara found Sebastian in the library. He looked up from a ledger with polite concern. Good morning. You look troubled. She closed the door behind her. We need to talk about Celine. He set aside his pen. Now, she held his gaze. I uncovered her portrait behind mirror. Julian calls her family. You never mentioned a sister. Sebastian inhaled, exhaling slowly. I wanted to tell you gently. Why so gentle that it became a lie? Amara asked, voice trembling. He rose and crossed the room. Celine is my half-sister, our father's child from another marriage. She stayed in France until this month. Amara studied him. Then why destroy the orchid in the greenhouse? Why ban me from that wing? He ran a hand through his hair. She panicked when she saw it. The lupin's flower, memory suppressant, reminded her of things she swore never to remember. So you hid her behind mirrors and walls, she said bitterly. You lied to protect her and me. He reached out. I love you. Everything I've done, I did to shield us from past pain. Her laughter was hollow. Shield us with lies? My trust is not a thing to be barricaded. He dropped his hand. I believed I could handle her side of the family alone. She crossed her arms. You didn't handle the fallout, you buried it. Sebastian's shoulders slumped. I thought I was saving you from heartbreak. and I thought I was married to a man of integrity." She paused. "I will learn the truth about Celine myself if you won't tell me." He met her gaze with resolve. "Very well. Ask your questions." Amara's lips curved in a half-smile. "First, why does Julian protect her more than you?" His eyes darkened. "Julian and Celine shared childhood memories when I turned away. He values her loyalty." "You value my love," she shot back. "Prove it with honesty." He offered his hand. After a heartbeat, she placed hers in it. "I promise no more lies." She nodded, though doubt lingered. He led her to a wrought iron balcony overlooking the cliffs. The wind whipped around them, carrying the taste of salt and freedom. The horizon glowed with dawn's promise, but to Amara, light and shadow had blurred. Trust, once shattered, could be reforged if he truly spoke the whole truth. That afternoon, Amara returned to the library, hoping to sift through Sebastian's journals. The corridors were silent, servants busy preparing for evening service. In the library's vaulted silence, she ran a finger along spines of leather-bound volumes. She halted at a gap, the space Celine had once occupied at the gala where she plucked that orchid. She paused, listening. From behind a tall shelf came soft laughter, Sebastian's rich baritone. Stepping around the corner, Amara saw them. Celine leaned forward, lips brushing his cheek in a gesture that was neither familial nor professional. Sebastian's hands rested lightly on her waist. Their kiss was brief but electric, a secret blown open in the hush of books. Amara's breath caught. "Stop." Her voice was low but firm. They sprang apart. Celine's face paled. Sebastian's eyes were wide. "Amara," he began. Celine straightened, smoothing her skirt. I'm sorry," she murmured, gaze flitting to the portrait behind Amara. "I thought you should know the truth." Amara crossed her arms. "Do you?" she asked Celine. "Or do you delight in betrayal?" Celine's gaze hardened. "I never meant to hurt you. I came to warn you." "Warn me?" Amara repeated, incredulous. With a kiss, Sebastian stepped in. "She's right. It's complicated." "Of course it is," Amara snapped. "My husband kisses his sister in the library, then lies about her to my face." Celine's voice cracked. "He is not my brother in the full sense. Our bond was forged before you arrived." "That doesn't excuse secrecy," Amara said. "I deserve respect." Sebastian closed his eyes. "Amara, please. Celine and I share a past you don't understand yet." "Then teach me," Amara challenged, "or I will uncover it on my own." Celine inhaled. "You want the truth. The original Sebastian Wolf, the one who built these companies, was Celine's twin." Her pale eyes seemed to glow. "When he died, I assumed his identity. This man is living under a name that isn't his own." Amara's blood ran cold. She stared at Sebastian, whose face had gone ashen. "What?" He reached for her hand. "You will hear everything, but not here." Amara let him guide her to a small reading nook. The light through stained glass painted them crimson and blue. In that hush, she realized the castle's true thief was memory, and that every kiss, every lie, bound them in a web only Celine could untangle. Night fell again, and Amara lay restless. Celine's revelation that Sebastian was an impostor shook her to the core. She dressed quietly and made her way to the forbidden West Wing. The door there had always been locked. Tonight it stood ajar. She pushed it open. A cold breeze greeted her as she entered a corridor lined with tapestries of ancestral wolves. At the far end, a carved oak door bore no handle, only an engraved keyhole. She pressed her ear to the wood. Muffled voices drifted out. Sebastian and Julian, their tones urgent. Heart pounding, Amara searched her pockets. She found an old silver key, one she had taken from Julian's study earlier. She slid it into the lock. It turned with a reluctant click. The door swung inward. Inside lay a chamber bathed in pale moonlight. Dust motes drifted around crates and parchment-stacked tables. She stepped forward, the portal closing behind her with finality. On a dais stood a display of old photographs, letters, and a faded portrait. Each image bore the same silver-eyed woman. Celine at 20, Celine at 30, Celine at 40. Dates scratched at the corners traced her through decades. She moved among the relics, her stomach churning. A ledger lay open on a desk, records of land acquisitions, forged documents, and signatures, her real signature. This imposter had climbed the corporate ladder on a foundation of lies. A sudden creak made her whirl. Julian stood in the doorway, candle in hand. His face was pale, guilt and grief warring in his eyes. "I'm sorry you had to find this." She dropped the frayed ledger. "All this time, you let him build on fraud." Julian nodded. "Our family's truth is buried here. The original Sebastian died in that well Carol wrote about. Celine found him, assumed his role. We all agreed to protect her and the company." Amara's voice trembled. "We agreed to deceive me." He stepped forward. "We thought you'd be safer in the dark." Her lip quivered. "Safer, or more vulnerable?" Julian lowered the candle. "You deserve the choice." She, breathing hard, stared at the artifacts of betrayal. "Choice given now. I choose the truth." He bowed his head. "Then we begin anew." Dawn broke gray and cold when they reconvened in the great hall. Amara stood at the head of the long oak table, flanked by Julian, Celine, and the man who had lived as Sebastian Wolf. The original founder's tomb lay hidden beneath the castle, but she demanded answers first. She held the forged deed. "This ledger records every illegal acquisition, land bought under false names, companies absorbed through threats. This is your work." Celine's face was drawn. "Not mine alone." Julian helped. "We feared the board would collapse without profit streams." Julian exhaled. "We did what we had to. The original founder, your husband's father, he built an empire on broken promises. Celine tried to right his mistakes, but found herself trapped." Amara's fists clenched around the paper. "And you trusted me to marriage when you hid this." The man called Sebastian bowed. "I chose you because I believed you deserved at least love built on honesty." She studied him. This man who had stolen a name, a legacy, a life. Love built on lies is no less cruel. He nodded, regret in his eyes. "I will go to the well site. I will bring forward his remains, show the world who I truly was, and who she truly was." Celine stepped forward. "I lost everything to protect this family. I am sorry." Amara's rage gave way to weary compassion. "You hid truths out of fear. Now we will face them together." She looked at Julian. "Contact the archivist. Every document, every deed, every name must be set right." He bowed his head. "Yes, Lady Amara." As ghostly light filtered through high windows, Amara realized the founder's secret was not just fraud, but fear. And in exposing it, she reclaimed her own power. The castle's true legacy would begin now, in honesty, not shadows. Amara sat at the long oak table in the candlelit study. The torn journal and orchid specimens spread before her like grim trophies of forgotten dreams. The storm outside battered battlements with fury, rain slashing at leaded windows and thunder rattling every pane. She pressed her palm to the cool surface of the table, heart racing as she recalled the gardener's warning. Margot, her estranged sister, had survived here once, escaped with fragments of stolen memories. No message had come, yet here she was. A sudden draft stirred the curtains, and Amara sensed movement in the corridor behind her. She rose, eyes narrowing at the open door. Standing framed by flickering torchlight was a silhouette she almost did not recognize. A tall woman with hollowed cheeks, fierce dark eyes, and tangled hair plastered against her face. Leather straps held a cloak studded with buttons. Her boots were streaked with mud. "Margot," Amara whispered, voice trembling. The woman moved forward, each step hesitant. Then she collapsed into the nearest chair, rain dripping from her cloak. She hugged herself, shoulders heaving. "I lost everything," Margot rasped. "They came for me when I turned 19. I was drugged, trapped, my name erased." Amara crossed the room and wrapped Margot in a warm velvet shawl. "You look as though you've been through war," she said, gently brushing back wet strands of hair. Margot raised a bitter laugh. "In a way, I have. I was prisoner of the same castle that promised sanctuary. They used the lupin's flower on me. Every 3 years, my memories harvested like petals. When the fog lifted, I knew only fear and anger. Amara's voice cracked. They used it on me, too. I found the crushed orchid in my greenhouse. Margot's eyes glinted. It was never about flowers. It was about control. Our mother, she believed 3 years would break us into obedience. Amara pressed her fingers to her temple. Why didn't you reach out sooner? Margot's brow furrowed with guilt and pain. I tried. I sent a letter, but it never reached you. I was ghosted, legal papers voided, adoption sealed. I lived as a nobody until I discovered the gardener's true name. He helped me track your movements. Amara sat beside her, absorbing every word. He warned me to find you. Margot nodded, tears slicking her lashes. I followed your scent of truth. When I learned you married an impostor living my family's name, I had to come. Amara exhaled, a tremor in her chest. Celine is your twin, so the man I love assumed an identity not his own. Margot grasped her hand. He did. The real Sebastian Wolf lies in that well. Celine and Julian hid the body to protect the empire. Family secrets run deeper than castle stones. Amara closed her eyes. Memories of laughter and childhood games rising then slipping away. I need to see the proof. Margot stood, resolve burning in her eyes. At dawn, we go to the West Wing. There's an underground chamber, documents, footage, everything you need to prove who you and I truly are. Amara rose as well, feeling strength return. Thank you for finding me. Margot laid a trembling hand on her shoulder. We belong to each other. Tomorrow, we reclaim our names. Lightning split the sky, illuminating two sisters united at last against the storm of secrets that had torn them apart. Late into the night, Amara sat beside Margot, poring over torn pages of the journal. Their whispered plans wove around them like threads of hope. Two sisters prepared to topple empires built on deceit. Dawn light filtered through arrow slits as Amara and Margot descended a spiral staircase in the West Wing. Mildew and damp stone walls closed around them, each footstep echoing like a heartbeat against ancient stone. The faint glow of torches mounted along the corridor guided their descent into the castle's hidden depths, revealing a history of secrecy etched into every crevice. At the foot of the stairs, a heavy iron door barred passage. Margot produced a key, a slender, ornate artifact she had concealed within her cloak. With a rasping groan, the rusted hinges gave way as the door swung open to reveal a small vault illuminated by a single lantern. Rows of wooden cubbies lined the walls, each containing ring boxes, sealed envelopes, and carefully catalogued relics bathed in warm amber light. Margot led Amara to a low table covered in deep black velvet. At its center lay 2 identical rings, one recovered from Amara's jewelry box earlier, the other emerging pristine from a velvet-lined compartment. Both featured a slender band of platinum, encrusted with tiny emeralds, and bearing the same intricate engraving of intertwined wolves and lilies. Amara picked up one ring, cradling it in her palm as if it might shatter. The engraving read, "Yours forever. S." Her breath caught. "Celine's ring," she whispered, voice hushed with awe and dread. Margot nodded gravely. "It belonged to our mother's twin daughter, Celine. She wore it until the day she vanished." She reached into another cubby and withdrew a faded letter bound with a wax seal. This accompanied the ring when she left France in 1990. Amara unfolded the brittle parchment with trembling fingers. The letter, in flowing handwriting, read, "To the sister I love beyond reason, keep our bond close and never let the empire's shadows dim your spirit." No signature, only the seal bearing a wolf's head. Amara's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. He gave me this as if it were my own vow, but the promise was never mine to claim. Her voice cracked. Margot placed a gentle hand on her sister's shoulder. "He knew the ring's history. He offered you a pledge meant for Celine, a lie wrapped in emeralds." Amara slipped the ring onto her finger, the metal cool against her skin. Each emerald glinted like a promise broken. "I trusted him with my heart," she murmured. Margot's voice was soft but firm. "Trust is earned through truth, not illusions. This ring reminds you that blood is stronger than any contract." Amara examined the engraving again, finding hidden initials intertwined with the wolves. "Yem, Evelyn Moreau, our aunt," she said, recalling family lore. She crafted this as the original matriarch's token. Margot exhaled. Yes, it was a symbol of unity when our family faced ruin. Then it became a tool of manipulation. Amara clenched her fist. Then we reclaim it. We restore its meaning. Margot smiled through tears. Wear it at the gathering tonight. Let its twin mark your claim. Outside the vault, Margot unrolled a parchment bearing seals. It contained clauses that nullified deeds signed with that ring. "This will void the impostor's claim," she whispered. "Once you wear it before the council, the forged documents collapse." Amara tucked the parchment into her sash, conviction blazing. The ring was no longer a token of deceit, but a sword to sever lies at their root. As they exited the vault, the morning sun filtered through cracks in the stone, illuminating two sisters bound by the same ring, now wielded to shatter the Empire's lies and forge a future built on shared truth. Late morning sun warmed the glassed expanse of the forbidden greenhouse as Amara and Margot entered. Pots of exotic orchids clustered on wrought iron shelves, their blooms vibrant against the muted stone. Amara's gaze zeroed on the single vial displayed on a pedestal, a small vial of purple liquid labeled Orchid Cure. Margot pointed to an ancient ledger resting beside the vial. "This formula reverses the effects of the lupin's flower memory suppressant." Amara lifted the vial, turning it in her palm. "Our mother believed in control through sedation," she said. "But this cure, it restores what was stolen." Margot unrolled the ledger to a page heavy with notes. The recipe calls for crushed orchid petals, moonlit dew, and a drop of lavender essence. Our Aunt Evelyn created it. Amara frowned, recalling the crushed petals in her greenhouse. Then Celine destroyed the last living bloom to prevent any cure. Margot nodded. She feared you would break free of her influence. Amara's jaw tightened. "We need to gather ingredients." "But how?" Margot led her deeper into the greenhouse, past rows of rare species. "Julian keeps reserves of preserved petals in his study. We can retrieve them." Amara hesitated. "Julian still protects Celine's secrets." Margot's eyes bore into hers. "Then we do it at twilight, when guards shift." Amara exhaled. "Tonight at dusk." They left the greenhouse, plants forming like vines growing toward the sun. Late afternoon, Amara found Julian alone in the library's alcove. He perused a ledger before looking up, brow knit. "Margot told me everything," he confessed. Amara's heart stuttered. "You know who she is." Julian nodded. "I refuse to erase her life. She deserves justice." He led her to a hidden cabinet lined with velvet. Inside lay a small box of dried petals, labeled with dates, sealed jars of moonlit dew, and a bottle of pure lavender oil carved with Celine's initials. "Take these," he said softly. "They've waited for this moment." Amara cradled each ingredient. "This could restore our memories and expose decades of lies." Julian's gaze was solemn. "Memory can heal or destroy. Be prepared." She slipped the jars into her sash, resolve sharpening like steel. "Thank you." As dusk fell, Amara and Margot returned to the greenhouse. Torches flickered, casting shadows across the glass. They arranged the ingredients on a stone pedestal. Milled petals glimmered dust, dew gleamed in crystal vials, lavender oil shimmered like liquid amethyst. Amara took a deep breath. "Here goes nothing." She poured dew into a mortar, added petals, then a drop of oil. The liquid turned a luminous violet, swirling with opalescent motes. Margot whispered, "Drink when you feel ready." Amara lifted the vial. Her reflection fractured in the glass. Herself, and so many lost selves. She recalled childhood laughter echoing in this same greenhouse, before first memory wipe. She tilted the vial and drank. The liquid was cool, sweet, and metallic. It slid down her throat, awakening something deep. Moments later, a rush of recollection seized her. Her mother's lullabies, Margot's first words, Celine's childhood laughter. Pain and joy collided like thunder. She gasped, pressing a hand to her chest. Margot steadied her. "Breathe. Let it flow." Amara staggered, but memories' tide rose. Images flooded her mind, names erased from ledgers, secret meetings in hidden passages, her father's final farewell. Tears streamed. When her breathing stilled, she looked at Margot with clarity burning in her eyes. I remember everything. Margot smiled through tears. Welcome home, sister. In the hush of the greenhouse, two sisters reclaimed their past, armed with truth and ready to challenge the empire that tried to bury them. Amara sat at a broad oak desk in the study, the recovered memory journal spread before her. Outside the stone-mullioned window, rain battered the parapets, yet within, wax candles flickered, casting dancing halos on leather-bound volumes. Its worn leather cover bore her name in looping script, Amara M. Lee. She opened to the first blank page, a heavy silence filling the room as she traced her fingertips across faint indentations of words torn away. Each crease signified a memory she could not access, erasures in her own life. Margot leaned over her shoulder, face wrought with concern. My mother forced me to write this before every suppression. I kept pages you never saw. She lifted a stack of yellowed sheets, the edges brittle from time. Amara inhaled, glancing at Margot's trembling hand. You risked everything to preserve these. Margot nodded, voice low. I swore I would find you again. Amara found a loose sheet tucked between entries. She read aloud. Day 1. I wake in white light, body aching. Faces are strangers. They say I'm loved. Her pulse quickened. I wrote this. Margot placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Each time your mind reset, you recorded drafts here, fragments of yourself you refused to lose. Amara turned pages with reverence. Day 2. Shadows whisper of a sister. I know her name, but not her face. Her eyes blurred. This is me reaching for you, even when I forgot who you were. On the next page, ink smears hid entire passages. With gentle breath, Amara wiped residue from the paper. Faint letters emerged. Find Celine. Trust no one. The cure is near. A knot formed in her throat. Instructions to myself. Margot traced the line with a finger calloused by years of toil. You fought to survive, scribbling reminders no one could destroy. Amara's chest tightened. They thought they could erase me entirely. She flipped to a later entry. Day 15. He brings me gifts. Emerald ring, golden castle. Love is my anchor, but something is wrong. Amara closed her eyes, the memory echoing. I knew then that affection could be a cage. Margot's voice quivered. He used your love to conceal his deceit. Amara opened to the final entry. Today I remember, my real name, my sister's face. I vow to tear down every lie. The scrawl was bold, dated last week. Fresh ink. Amara slammed the journal shut. The sound rang like a gavel. These words, they are proof and power. Margot nodded. With these and the vault's records, we can summon the council. Amara rose, determination blazing in her eyes. We need allies. Julian, Celine, even the gardener. Tonight, we gather support in the great hall. Margot hesitated. Celine may betray us at the last moment. Amara's gaze was steel. Then we confront her. I will not yield another secret. Lightning cracked across the sky. Amara pointed toward the distant archway leading to the council chamber. We present this journal beneath those stones. My voice will resonate through every arch. Margot placed the journal on the desk. Your truth has become a weapon. Amara laid her hand on the cover, feeling the embossed letters. My memories are my shield now. They cannot be taken. As thunder rolled like distant drums, two sisters stepped from the study into the storm-lit corridor, armed with ink defiance and ready to rewrite history. Down the corridor, servants and guards paused, sensing change. Tomorrow, the council would convene under truth's banners, and echoes of Amara's reclaimed voice would shatter the empire's silence. No more families ever torn apart by erasure again. Night hung heavy over the castle courtyard, wind whistling through empty battlements as Amara, Margot, Celine, Julian, and the gardener gathered around the ancient stone well. Lanterns cast quivering pools of amber light on moss-covered cobblestones. The air smelled of damp earth and rusted iron. a fitting scent for secrets long hidden below. Julian knelt by the iron grate that sealed the well's mouth. With a crowbar in trembling hands, he levered free the rusted bars, each shriek echoing off the walls. Rain droplets slipped down the stones, thudding softly as he heaved the grate aside. A yawning shaft descended into blackness. The gardener stepped forward, gripping a coil of rope. Amara placed a steadying hand on Julian's shoulder. "Are you certain your lantern will shine far enough?" she asked quietly. He met her gaze resolutely. "Yes, but we must work swiftly. Guards patrol this wing every hour." Margot's voice was firm. "We've come too far to turn back now." Celine's pale form drifted to Amara's side, face drawn. "I have risked my position, my own freedom, to reveal this truth tonight." Amara studied Celine, recalling the betrayal and the cure. "Will you stand with us?" she asked. Celine inhaled sharply. "I accept the consequences." Julian tied a lantern to the rope's end and lowered it. The light revealed slick stone walls damp with centuries of seepage. He then secured a makeshift harness around the gardener's torso. The gardener, heart pounding, descended, lantern bobbing like a solitary star in an abyss. Silence enveloped the group until a faint shuffle and a rustle of cloth echoed. Moments later, the gardener reemerged, rope taut, clutching a heavy bundle wrapped in oilskin. "It's him," he whispered, voice raw. The men and women formed a ring around the grate. Julian carefully unwrapped the oilskin. Beneath lay a skeletal form draped in tattered finery, a distressed wool jacket embossed with a wolf crest, a broken signet ring still clinging to a finger bone, and the cufflinks engraved with SW. Amara exhaled sharply. "My husband's twin, or the man he replaced." Her heart thundered. "He's real." Margot's face glowed in lantern light. The true Sebastian Wolf, dead since that storm 15 years ago. Celine's knees buckled, and she steadied herself. "I never imagined this outcome." Amara knelt, brushing soil from the skull's fractured jaw. "These remains break the foundation of every lie they built," she said, voice low but unwavering. Julian produced a parchment sealed with crimson wax. He pressed it against the skeleton's chest. "This blood contract names the real Sebastian alongside our father, binding the empire in oath." Margot lifted a tarnished locket from the folds of the jacket. Inside lay a faded childhood portrait of a boy and a girl, twins at a garden gate. He was brother to Celine. She concealed his death. Amara held the signet ring aloft, its metal glinting. "Exhibit A." She turned to Celine. "And you, will you stand by me as I reveal this?" Celine met her gaze, tears glistening. "I stand with you." The gardener and Julian backed away as Amara placed the skeletal remains gently aside. She pressed the journal and artifacts to her chest. The courtyard fell silent. Then Margot spoke. "Tomorrow, we bring this to the council. No more shadows." Amara nodded. "The man in the well will echo through every hall." They departed, leaving the well's dark mouth open as testament to truth and vengeance. The empire they knew would not survive its own secrets. And in the well's darkness, the empire's heartbeat faded into true history, forever. Moonlight filtered through the shattered greenhouse panes as Amara confronted the man she had pledged her life to. Sebastian, no, the imposter, stood before her in tailored velvet, guilt and fear warring in his eyes. His reflection in the broken glass looked stranger than any portrait. Amara's voice trembled. "You are not Sebastian Wolf. You never were." He closed his eyes, shame folding his features. "I know." She crossed her arms. "Then who are you?" He took a shaky breath. "My name was Alain Moreau, Celine's twin brother." His gaze flicked to Celine, watching from the doorway. "When our father died at sea, no one expected Celine to survive. But she did, and she refused to let grief destroy her. She found me broken, curled beside his body. She asked me to take Sebastian's place, to carry on his legacy." Amara's heart pounded. "You assumed his identity? You married me under a false name." He bowed his head. "I loved you, Amara. The moment I saw you at that gala, something stirred in me. I believed if I could be him, I could protect you and atone for my own cowardice. Her breath caught. Protect me? By lying. He stepped forward. All of this castle, the empire, was built on deception. The original Sebastian killed himself out of guilt for what the company had done. Celine discovered the ledger entries, where he ordered land seized from orphans. She thought the world needed Sebastian's power, and she needed me to wield it. Anger burned her chest. You stole everything, his name, his fortune, his life. He lifted his eyes, tears glinting. Every time I looked at your face, I asked myself if lies were justified by love. I convinced myself they were. Amara's voice softened, though hurt pulsed beneath her words. Love built on lies collapses under truth. Celine emerged, silk skirt whispering on stone. Alan believed he could redeem our family sins. I believed I was saving us both. Amara turned to her. And you let this happen. Celine held up a trembling hand. I thought if Alan stood in Sebastian's stead, we could steer the company away from darkness. But we only buried our ghosts deeper. Amara's jaw clenched. Then we unearthed them together. Alan nodded, voice raw. I will step down. Every forged document will be voided. I will relinquish his name. She met his gaze. You will tell the world who you are. You will face justice for these sins. He exhaled. I deserve nothing less. Amara turned away, eyes fixed on the turrets silhouetted against the moonlit sky. Tomorrow we begin the reckoning. As she left them in the ruined glass and broken blooms, Amara realized that the greatest lie had been Alan's belief that love could thrive without truth, and that the only path forward was to rebuild on honesty's foundation. Dawn broke gray and cold as Amara convened a gathering in the great hall. Torches flickered, casting long shadows over oak floors, scarred by centuries of intrigue. Around her stood Margot, Celine, Alan, Julian, and the gardener, each bearing the weight of revelations. Amara held aloft an aged parchment sealed with crimson wax, the blood contract binding Sebastian's family to silence. This, she declared, voice echoing, is the pact that shackled us all. Celine's pale eyes filled with regret. I never meant for it to enslave you. I believed we needed that oath to protect the empire and our family. Julian's shoulders sagged. We swore loyalty to a name that died in darkness. Amara broke the seal. As the wax crumbled, the hall seemed to tilt. She unveiled the contract, supple calfskin inked with vows to sever ties to truth in exchange for wealth and power. Each signature, Celine's, Julian's, Alan's, hovered like ghosts across the leather. Margot gasped. They bound their blood to this lie. Amara read aloud the final clause. Should any member recall the past, the pact demands silence or the blood of the offender. Her eyes met Celine's. You broke this oath when you revealed the ledger. The room stilled. Celine swallowed. I know. I paid the price in exile and betrayal. Amara turned to Julian. You enforced this contract by destroying my memories. Julian bowed his head. I believed erasure was the only way to spare you from pain. Alan stepped forward. I signed thinking I would atone for my guilt. I believed I could quell the darkness. Amara's gaze swept the circle. Yet we allowed fear to bind us tighter than blood. She folded the parchment and stepped to the hearth. Flames flickered, as if eager to consume the old vows. There will be no more secrets. She tossed the contract into the fire. It crackled, the parchment curling and blackening. Each signature flared in the blaze, then crumbled into ash. A hush fell. The air felt lighter, as though the castle exhaled centuries of mistrust. Celine wiped her tears. We are free. Margot locked arms with Amara, and we will build anew. Julian exhaled slowly. The pact is broken, but the work remains. Amara nodded. We will restore integrity to this family and its legacy. She turned to the gardener. You will help me replant the greenhouse, this time with life, not memory flowers. He bowed. It will bloom with truth. As embers died in the hearth, Amara realized that the blood contract once promised silence. Now it promised freedom. And in that freedom, they would forge a future guided by honesty. By candlelight in the underground vault, Margot revealed the final secret hidden within a steel safe. Amara watched as Margot retrieved an inoculation vial and 2 leather-bound dossiers, stamped confidential. Lee Protocol. Margot's hands trembled. This is our mother's true experiment. Amara's heart pounded. Tell me. Margot opened the first dossier. Medical records, chemical formulas, and psychological evaluations. You and I were part of Project Lupin, subjects in a program to suppress trauma memories for the elite. Every 3 years, our memories were wiped to erase pain and maintain obedience. Amara pressed a hand to her chest. My anger, my confusion, it was engineered. Margot continued. Mother believed memory was a prison. She partnered with the company's chemists to harvest our memories and convert them into profit, selling the theory to the highest bidder. Celine's voice broke the silence. I saw the documentation years ago. I thought I could control it. Amara opened the second dossier. Personal journals of their mother. Each entry chronicled Amara's childhood, her first steps, first heartbreak. Then a line struck out in red ink. Entry expunged. Amara blinked back tears. Margot read aloud. Subject A. Amara exhibited severe anxiety. Administer high-dose suppressor. Monitor compliance. Amara's vision blurred. They branded me with chemicals instead of compassion. Margot folded the journal shut. We can end this. I found the master kill switch in the chemist's notes, an enzyme that permanently blocks memory suppression. Amara's jaw clenched. We use it on every vial, every sample. Margot nodded. And reveal the program to the world. Expose every corporation that funded it. Alan stepped forward, voice low. I stand with you. I will testify. Julian's eyes glistened. I will provide the records. Celine placed a hand on Amara's arm. We reclaim our minds together. Amara inhaled, resolve hardening. Then let us destroy Project Lupin. Lightning flickered through the narrow windows as they sealed every dossier in a crate marked evidence. Tomorrow, they would broadcast the truth. Tonight, they forged bonds of sisterhood, unbreakable by pain or poison. As dawn's first light crept across the grounds, Amara, Margot, Celine, and Alan huddled outside the greenhouse. Its glass panels gleamed with morning dew, a testament to rebirth. But Julian approached with a lantern and a wick, his face drawn and resolute. Everything must go, he said quietly. I am responsible for those who suffered. Amara's eyes narrowed. You set fire to the greenhouse. He bowed his head. I built it on the memory flowers. I profited from their sale. Tonight, I will burn it all. Her breath caught. You will destroy years of rare orchids. Julian's shoulders shook. They stand for manipulation. They must die. Celine placed a steadying hand on his arm. You tried to warn her. She refused to trust the cure. He met Amara's gaze. Let me atone. Amara exhaled and nodded. Then perform your penance. She stepped back as Julian lit the wick. Flames leapt, licking the wooden frames. Crackling glass shattered as fire spread along vines and petals. Smoke curled upward, suffocating dawn's serenity. They watched in hushed sorrow and relief as the greenhouse's skeleton glowed, like a funeral pyre. Margot clutched Amara's hand. From ashes will grow truth. Julian lowered the lantern. I will leave this place tonight. Amara's voice was soft but firm. You will remain. Help us rebuild. He shook his head. My presence is poison. He turned away. Celine stepped forward, tears in her eyes. He seeks exile for his crimes. We cannot force forgiveness. Amara closed her eyes, heart torn. She couldn't let Julian disappear into the same shadows he helped create. Then you will face justice alongside us. You will testify at the council. Julian paused, torn between gratitude and guilt. Finally, he nodded. I will stand. As the greenhouse collapsed into embers, Amara placed a hand over her heart. The flames consumed decades of deceit, and in their place, a phoenix of truth would rise. Late that evening, torches guided Amara, Margot, and Celine down a narrow tunnel concealed beneath the well's ledge. The air smelled of damp stone and old secrets. Each step echoed like a heartbeat in the dark. Margot held a lantern high. This passage leads to the primary vault, where every file on Project Lupin and the Wolf Fortune lies. Amara's pulse quickened. Let's see the full scope. They reached a heavy iron door, secured by a combination lock. Celine stepped forward. This code was in the chemist's notes. With a soft click, the door swung inward to reveal a vast chamber lined with steel shelves. Filing cabinets stood in rows, and in the center, a projector and screen waited. Bundles of film reels and videotapes lay scattered across a stone table. Margot retrieved a reel labeled Lee Protocol, Amara Watch. Reverently, she loaded it onto the projector. As the film whirred to life, grainy footage filled the screen. A toddler Amara squealing in a crib, then an older girl clutching Margot's hand as a masked figure administered injections. Voices murmured, "Suppress. Erase. Protect." Amara's breathing quickened. My childhood stolen. Celine pointed to another cabinet stamped Wolf Foundation. Inside, deeds showing decades of land seizures, forged wills, and off-the-books acquisitions lay in neat stacks. Proof of every crime, she whispered. Margot placed a hand on a reel marked Lupin Cure. This video shows the creation of the cure, how to synthesize the antidote. Amara moved along the shelves, scanning labels. Blood contract, identity files, memory files. Each held a piece of their past. She paused at a drawer labeled Mother's Endgame. Inside was a single letter. My daughters are my legacy. If memory fails them, I will forgive. Tears stung her eyes. She loved us in her own way. Celine guided her to a final cabinet marked Media Releases. Once we broadcast these, no one can deny the truth. Amara exhaled. Then we expose everything. She picked up the projector remote. Tomorrow at midday, we unveil this chamber to the council, press, and public. Margot gathered the reels into a crate. Our stories will be heard. As they exited the vault, the weight of hidden history lifted. Amara paused at the tunnel's mouth, looking back at the iron door. Behind it lay the echoes of her erased self, and now, her reclaimed identity. Stepping into the moonlit courtyard, Amara raised her chin. Let them see who we truly are. Under midnight's hush, three sisters emerged, armed with film, documents, and unbreakable resolve, to cast daylight on decades of darkness. The Empire's final chapter would be written in truth. Later that evening, Amara stood before the great oak doors of the dining hall, heart pounding as she extinguished the last of her doubts. Torches along the walls flickered golden in the gloom, illuminating a long table laid with crystal goblets and silver platters. On one end sat Alan, still wearing the velvet coat he had claimed as Sebastian's, his eyes haunted with regret. Opposite him was Celine, pale and poised, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Amara took a steadying breath, smoothing the folds of her silk gown as she slipped into the seat between them. A hush fell as she raised her gaze to Celine. Tonight, she began, voice steady, we conclude what began in shadows. She gestured to the first course, smoked trout, fresh garden herbs, and lemon foam. Celine smiled, cool and inviting. A fitting start, she murmured, but I fear you taste more than fish. Alan's knuckles whitened around his goblet. Amara, he pleaded, must we do this now? She lifted her own glass. Truth cannot wait. Clink. She sipped. Warm wine coated her tongue. An aromatic vintage they had toasted the lifting of the blood contract just days before. She settled the goblet and leaned forward. Celine, you rerouted our family's blood for power. You drugged me, erased her. She nodded toward Margot, watching from shadowed archways. And you betrayed us both. Celine's lips quivered. I did what I believed necessary. Her voice cracked. Our lineage was on the brink. I saved it. A slender blade, once hidden beneath the table, slid into Amara's hand. Celine's eyes widened as the steel glinted. You saved nothing, Amara whispered. You stole lives. At her signal, Margot stepped forward, lowering a small vial marked cure. Celine's throat tightened when she saw it. She rose, face pale. You wouldn't dare. Amara's gaze was unflinching. I would. In one swift motion, Celine lunged for the vial. Amara pivoted, and the blade fell, Celine's cry echoed against stone as she collapsed. The vial shattered at her feet. Alan surged forward, but Amara held up a steady hand. Celine's final breath caught, her eyes fixed on Amara's. "Remember me," she whispered before darkness closed her lids. Silence swallowed the hall. Amara laid the blade aside, her hand trembling. "It ends," she said softly. Alan bowed his head, grief and relief warring in his expression. Outside, a distant clock told midnight, marking the end of one chapter and the dawn of another drenched in blood and truth. Before sunrise, the castle seemed to hold its breath. In the gallery, Julian arranged documents and prepared to testify at the council. Amara found him examining a crystal decanter filled with the same vintage she had shared at dinner. He lifted the stopper, inhaling the aroma with a small smile. "To new beginnings," he murmured, pouring 2 goblets. Amara hesitated. I'm not thirsty." Julian placed a glass beside her. "One sip to steel oneself. You'll need strength today." He raised his. "To the truth." They drank. Seconds later, Julian's face paled. His knees buckled. Amara caught him, but he collapsed, lips frothing. His eyes met hers. With ragged breath he gasped. I forged the documents, tied you to him legally. I thought it would protect you." His fingers trembled, tracing the ring she still wore. "I'm sorry." Blood seeped onto the stone floor as Julian exhaled for the last time. Amara's scream echoed through vaulted ceilings. Guards burst in and Celine's body, still warm, was carried away by torches' glare. Amara knelt beside Julian's motionless form, tears mixing with the spilled wine. "Why?" she whispered to the empty hall. The poison that felled him had been the same she used on Celine. Yet Julian never meant betrayal. His final confession cleaved her heart in 2. He saved her by forging love, then died revealing a final lie. As dawn broke pale through arrow slits, Amara rose, determination hardened like steel. The castle's debts would be paid in full, with blood, truth, and unflinching justice. By midday, news of the twin deaths spread beyond the castle walls. Councilmen and heralds gathered, clutching letters and rumors. Inside the great hall, Amara stood alone beside the empty throne where Sebastian once sat. Alan had vanished before dawn, leaving only his velvet coat and shattered promises. Guards found no trace of him, no farewell note, no footprints in the dew. Margot approached, eyes dark with grief and resolve. "They call you widow of a phantom," she said softly. "No records remain of your marriage. His name, Sebastian Wolf, has been struck from every ledger." Amara touched the wedding band still on her finger. The engraving had faded, as though even time sought to erase his existence. "I am bound to nothing now," she whispered. "No husband, no title, no empire." A herald announced, "Lady Amara, heir to the Wolf estate, summons the council." Amara stepped forward, voice clear. "Let the record show that I stand alone, widow to no man, bound only to truth." Murmurs rippled through assembled lords and ladies. Documents were produced, annulment decrees, forged signatures, and the charred remains of the blood contract. Margot laid Julian's final confession on the table. "I forged her identity to shield her. I die absolved." Amara raised her hand. "My name is Amara Lee. I renounce all claims tied to a stolen legacy. Henceforth, this castle and its wealth serve those who were silenced by memory and deceit." A stunned silence followed, then cautious applause. The nameless widow had declared herself free and vowed to protect others. Months later, the castle stones stood repaired, its walls echoing laughter instead of lies. Amara led a procession of women through the gates, survivors whose memories had been stolen, identities erased. The greenhouse, once ash, now bloomed with native orchids and lilies, each petal a testament to resilience. In the refurbished great hall, banners flew bearing the symbol of 2 intertwined wolves, Amara and Margot's crest. Celine's portrait had been replaced by a mosaic of every woman the castle had failed, faces carved in vibrant tile, forever free. Amara oversaw plans for a sanctuary wing and a school where knowledge, not suppression, would thrive. Gardeners planted healing herbs. Architects drew halls for testimony and art. At dusk, Margot found her by the new fountain, its waters clear and singing. "You've done it," Margot said, pride shining in her eyes. "You made a home for lost souls." Amara smiled, brushing a stray lock from her face. "We did it." She pressed her palm to warm stone carved with names reclaimed that year. "This castle will heal more hearts than it ever wounded." Under a lavender sky, laughter rose on the wind, proof that from fire and betrayal, a new life could bloom. In the rose garden at dawn, Amara knelt beside a single orchid sprouting from the rich earth. Its petals were pale lavender veined with emerald, an echo of the rare lupin's flower. She brushed dew from the bloom and recalled the first time she held a crushed petal in her hand, fear and confusion swirling in her mind. Margot joined her, carrying an old wooden crate. "It's been years," she murmured as she knelt beside her sister, "but the orchid endures." Amara breathed in the blossom's gentle perfume. "It reminds me that even the deepest wounds can heal with care." She plucked the flower and rose, tucking it into the pocket of her cloak. Later, at the edge of the cliff where the original Sebastian Wolf's remains rested beneath a simple headstone marked SW, Amara paused. The wind whipped around her, waves crashing far below. She laid the orchid gently upon the stone. "Rest now," she whispered. "Your legacy shattered walls, but our truth rebuilt them." She straightened, eyes bright with resolve. Ahead lay the sanctuary she had forged. Halls filled with memory journals, classrooms humming with discovery, and gardens blooming with orchids, never again to be used for erasure. As the sun rose, Amara turned away from the gravestone and walked toward her new life, free, powerful, and entirely herself. The orchid's petals caught the light, a promise that in every ending blooms a beginning. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like, comment, and share. Also turn on the bell to get more of our videos. See you in the next story.